Organizational meeting of the Faribault Public School School Board to order. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Always done this all the time. There is a quorum present?
Yes, there is. 6 board members are present. Howard Bodie is absent.
The agenda is before you. Entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? There are no adjustments to the agenda, so all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you. 1.2 is election of the officers for 2012. The first position is the chair. I will entertain nominations for the chair for 2012.
I nominate Jason Engbrick.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there other nominations? Are there other nominations? Are there other nominations? All right, having called 3 times for nominations, I will entertain a motion to approve the, let him sit down, we'll tell him what the nomination is. Howard, we have just entertained a motion to nominations for the chair, and it was moved and seconded to nominate Jason as the chair for 2012. Okay, I will, the motion has been made and seconded to nominate, and there are no other nominations. I will call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Is there discussion or not?
Certainly
really?
can have discussion.
That Jason and I had a discussion last night, and I'm a little concerned, even though that I don't know how I'm going to vote on this, but it's of a conflict of interest with Jason. I talked to him about that, and I don't know what the feeling of the board is, but Jason's a nice guy, reputable, integrity high, everything, but I'm just concerned how that will look in the public. Conflict of interest when his wife's a teacher. So that's all I'm, okay. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Respect that, Richard. Thank you for your comments. I, however, have felt that Jason has been very cognizant of that and has been very diligent in not making that issue interfere with some very good decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you very much,
Exactly.
Richard, for your comments. So, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the nomination of Jason as the chair for the 2012 school year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Okay, Howard?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Jason?
I'll abstain.
Sorry. Richard?
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 No.
Jerry?
Aye.
James?
Aye.
Passes 5, 1, and 1 abstaining.
I'll trade spots.
Trade spots even.
It's all yours.
Just like that.
Before you go on, I just want to make a couple of comments, and I appreciate the support of the board over the last year. I think we've gone through some very challenging times, but Richard, in your article that you wrote in the paper, probably one biggest accomplishment we had this year was selecting Todd as our superintendent of the schools. There are troubled waters ahead of us, but I believe as a cohesive board, if we have functioned over the last year, I see no reason why we should not be able to navigate those waters very successfully, and I'm appreciative of Jason stepping forward to assume the chair's position during these periods of time. So, but personally, I want to thank all of you board members for your support over the last year. It's been a very rewarding and exciting time, so thank you very much. And Todd, thank you, Kathy, for your support also during this period of time. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. That dovetails nicely into what I wanted to say first in my first moments as chair, and that is to thank you, Jerry, for your work these past 2 years. They've been, we've had some important items happening in the last 2 years. The levy was passed, and we hired Todd, and that was under your leadership. And I, for one, thank you very much for that. And I hope that I can fulfill my duties with the same integrity that you have. So I appreciate that greatly. The only other thing I'll say really quickly is that a little over an hour ago, I got braces. So I have a new appreciation for my 10-year-old daughter. And so if at any point tonight I'm unable to articulate my thoughts, I'm going to blame it on the braces. In about a month I'll have to come up with a new excuse, but for now that's mine. So
That's
those.
because you're getting them off in a month, so then you have to
So
readjust your
I'll need a new reason for that in a month. Next item on the agenda is the election of a vice chair for the school board. Do I hear any nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Deb Davis.
I'll second that nomination.
Okay, so we have a nomination and a second for Deb Davis. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All right, hearing none, with 3 calls, we'll entertain, I'll call for a vote on the nomination. All those in favor of Deb Davis as board vice chair, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is the clerk position. I'll entertain nominations at this time for the position of clerk.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Howard Bodie as the clerk.
There's been a nomination for
Second.
Howard Bodie and a second. Do I hear any other nominations at this time for the clerk position? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, I guess I should say I'll entertain any discussion on the topic, if there is any. Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the nomination of Howard Bodie for the clerk position, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And finally, the treasurer position. I will entertain a motion at this time for nominations for the treasurer position.
I would like to nominate James Wolf.
Second.
All right, I hear a nomination and a second for James Wolf as treasurer. Do I hear any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll entertain any discussion on this motion. Hearing no discussion, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of, we are in Howard Bodie as treasurer. No, James Wolf, sorry, as treasurer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. All right, and moving along, next item on the agenda are committee appointments. We'll go down this list. Before we start on this list, I'll mention one thing I would like to, with the board's approval, also talk about at this meeting. I'm not sure if we want to call it a committee for Todd's evaluation, the superintendent evaluation. Earlier in the year, when we talked about the superintendent evaluation, we talked about choosing those who would lead that at this meeting. I have some thoughts on who that would be, so I think I'll just select that. But I want to do that at this time as well, so I'll do that when we're done with these other committees. Finance Committee, do I hear?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
before we
please.
go any further, it was my understanding that the curriculum committee was going to be included, and I did not see that in these papers.
Yep, that should be added, that was an oversight.
Okay.
We had that.
Todd, are you looking for one or two members on that committee? Do we
Just
have a-
one.
Just
Yep.
a single
It has to
member
be
on it?
majority of the parents, so it's easier if it's just one.
Okay,
Yep.
sure. Okay, so also added to the list will be the curriculum. We'll do that before I talk about the evaluation of Todd. Any other comments before we start down the committee list? Richard?
I would like to maintain what I have last year. That makes it simple.
Sure, on the finance committee. Sure.
Finance committee and the subcommittees, so.
Okay, so we'll go down this list, and if you'll
Okay.
help me as we get down that,
Thank you.
then we'll make
Thank you,
sure that we
Mr.
do
Chair.
that. But we're starting with the finance committee, so we have Richard on the finance committee. Obviously, we have James on the finance committee. Is there other interest? I know Tom had been on the finance committee, but you've also expressed an interest in the curriculum committee, so I think
Curriculum
that's
committee
where
would be, I'd like to
you
use
would
that
like
as
to-
my focus.
like to be. Other thoughts on the finance committee? We do not need, I think, is that correct, 3 members on the committee, though that might be nice.
That's maximum.
Yeah.
I can serve on finance if you need
Okay.
somebody.
Howard?
So we're replacing Tom with Howard?
Yes.
Okay.
No one can replace Tom, but in his place, Howard will serve.
You're already acting like a chair.
The inserts already.
Braces aren't in the way yet, I guess. Okay. So I have on my list that for members of the finance committee, we have Richard, James, and Howard. That sounds correct, everyone? All right. Schools for Equity in Education, I'm not sure who was on that in the past.
You know, I am, and unless somebody on the finance committee would wish to participate, I would like to continue that, although I haven't attended a lot of meetings, but I don't know when they're scheduled, but I think it's gonna be critical, and I will be able to spend more time in that area, so unless somebody else has a strong desire from the finance committee, I'd like to continue serving as the school board representative to see.
So Jerry is willing to serve, or are there any thoughts on strong desires to serve? So, hearing none, I think we'll put Jerry in for that position.
I would say it would be good to build reports from those meetings into
Yes.
the board or work session agenda.
Should we do it under board reports, and then just list those meetings that occurred during the time?
Okay. All right, we'll think about how we might work that in there when we look at the agendas. Okay. The insurance committee, I'm also not sure who served on that.
At your place, do you have last year's information? I
Oh.
highlighted it with pink,
That's right, I remember
so
that.
you can look and see who is for 2011.
What's it gonna do with that sheet then?
That's for reference.
Thank you. All right, so James and Howard served on the insurance committee last year. Interest in serving on that committee? James, I think I heard you, or maybe you weren't expressing an interest and you were just saying that you were on it in the past. So now I'll ask if there's an interest in serving on that committee. Howard, interested in staying on that committee? Anybody else? James is indicating an interest. Richard, did I see you?
Did Howard?
Well,
I think Howard just expressed an interest,
Oh,
James
he-
just expressed an interest, but
I don't
do you
need
have-
to be on it, no.
I don't
Yeah,
need to be on it.
I was
you
willing
might
to
be-
do it.
We don't got nobody.
So I don't, Richard,
The chairman is losing here.
Richard, if you have an interest, I think
Well,
my,
you know,
I
all of a
think he
sudden you
was
go
just
from
trying
4
to-
down to nothing, you know.
If he has an interest, I say go ahead.
Richard
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
and Howard,
I'll stay on it.
can we ask you
yeah.
to stay on it? So
Sure.
Cross out.
we'll have Richard and Howard on the insurance committee. Excellent. The policy committee had myself, Dave, Deb, and Howard. So interest in serving on the policy committee moving forward.
Yeah, and as long as I'm on finance, then I'd like to be removed from policy.
Okay.
And I'll volunteer to serve on the policy committee.
I'd like to stay on.
And Deb? Okay. Any other desires to serve on the policy committee? All right, we'll have Jerry and Deb as our representatives on that committee. Okay.
Is Jason, are you still on it?
I don't think so. I think as chair, I won't be on that, although I'll be happy to give advice when asked.
Jason's just
All right, on to the cooperative agreements. Alexander Park and the ice arena, it looks like I served the last year. I'm happy to continue doing so unless there's a desire on somebody else's part to do so. All right, hearing none, I'll continue serving on those two committees. The Community Ed Joint Powers agreement. Do we need that committee assignment maybe for
Well, I think for next 6.
at least for a short
Yeah.
period? We need that. Richard served in that role. Do you have still an interest in
Yes,
continuing, Richard?
yes.
Is there anyone else with an interest? Okay, then we will put Richard in that position. Soccer committee, Richard served on that committee as well. Richard, do you continue to have
I
an
can,
interest?
if somebody else wants it,
So, any other interest in that
if
soccer
somebody's
committee?
interested in soccer.
I'd serve on that.
James is interested in that. We'll put James on the soccer committee then. And the State High School League, James has served on that, I think for a couple of years. Any desire to serve on that committee?
I've never been asked to do a single thing.
Okay.
And I think I get a magazine because I'm on it with a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
But I guess we need such, you know, I'm for, if it doesn't do anything, why do we have it? But I think maybe we're required to have a board designee, but
Is that the way it is with the cooperative agreement?
High school.
It's high school league, and I think that's part of their piece, but
Yeah.
they also have, it's a little more active than, we can make it a little bit more active though. It's been-
I thought they had regular meetings of
I've
representatives.
never gotten
Ken,
to
Ken
notice
goes to some kind of meeting.
an invitation to go.
I don't know if Ken knows we have a board representative.
Yeah,
Maybe he
Yeah,
does.
he does.
He does, okay.
yeah, I'd have to, that's one of those new things I'll have to look in to see how it functions here in this district.
Well, should we pencil somebody in?
I think you need to, just cause the
Okay.
state high school league will ask for
All right.
a rep.
I'm not sure if I heard James volunteering himself or not, so not to speak for
I
him.
thought I was gonna get to referee some basketball games. I guess not, so.
So is there other interest and or
If
willingness?
somebody else wants it, they can certainly have it. If nobody wants to, especially seeing it's so much work, I will stay in.
Sounds like a good committee to be on.
Were you volunteering, Howard, or simply
If he
commenting?
wants a replacement, sure, I could do it. Nobody else
I
wants
don't-
it.
We'll put Howard in the position and see where that
I
goes.
really wasn't volunteering, but,
Just
One of
did.
those- one of those times when you don't say a whole lot.
If I come with a report every month, and the people say, what was Wolf doing?
And the Wellness Committee, I think in the past year we had Deb and James, we had some discussions recently about the activity of that committee. Were we going to discuss that at a future
I mean, we
work
can just,
session?
our 2
Or-
cents worth, we're revamping it right now, we're gonna have the committee, so, we've got a meeting already scheduled for, January 31st to get
Okay,
moving
and so
in the
we should
right
have a board member at least, maybe 2 for.
direction. I think 2 board members would really be appropriate
Okay.
for this, so.
I might be in court that day, so,
Oh.
for my job, so I can't commit to that meeting, but.
It's a
I
beauty
would
to have it
mind-
too, I mean, it doesn't, both of you don't
Yeah.
have to be there necessarily.
I wouldn't mind staying on it, I've done it since I've been on the board.
We really need to strengthen that community, and I think that's a really vital piece of our organization.
What time does it meet?
3:45.
And they normally meet between anywhere from, 3:15 to 3:45. That's when they normally meet.
I
So
think
Deb has
they
expressed
will
an
begin at
interest.
3:45 to allow for the teachers, 15 minutes after their time.
Can I nominate James for that?
Well, I would like to hear if James is willing to serve.
Oh, yeah, I definitely wanna stay on.
With his
If
background.
James is definitely wanting to be on there, so we have Deb and James so we don't need anybody else, are there strong feelings about that? Okay, excellent. So Deb and James will serve on the wellness
So
committee.
can you make
for us.
that first meeting, James?
Hmm?
The first meeting's
Yeah,
January
I've got it
1st,
done.
Okay. And I'll be
Uh,
there if I'm not in court, so.
We are in the process of putting together a curriculum committee as well for the first time.
Well, we sort of have, we've been kind of getting through it by phases, but it's getting there.
Okay. Tom has already expressed an interest. Is there other interest on the board for that committee? I think Todd expressed one might be the right number, but I want to see if there's other interest.
I was years past, curriculum special ed, but, you know, then they dissolved the committees, but Tom is excellent, will be excellent.
Okay.
You know, I would not hesitate acting as an alternate. There's a time when Tom cannot. Take a look at policy. I think that's going to have some ramifications on it.
All right, so I'm hearing Tom will certainly be on the committee. Not sure how to put an alternate.
I just put me down as a committee member also.
Okay, so we're gonna have two committee members, I think, Tom and Jerry.
Is that a good drink? Sorry.
Tom and Jerry, they're down.
Fitting for the work they'll do. And then I guess I just wanted to express, we'll also, we'll be starting the process of evaluating Todd for this first year, the superintendent's evaluation. Following our policy and previous discussions we had, I plan to serve on that myself, and I've asked Jerry, with his experience, to actually to lead that process. So I'm expecting Jerry to lead that process, and I'll be involved. Jerry and I have discussed that a little bit, and our thoughts are that if there's another board member interested, we would not, we would appreciate the input. All board members will, of course, be involved in that process and giving feedback. This will be the smaller subcommittee that meets and moves the process along, which is limited to 3. So I think, so yeah, I guess I would like to ask the table for if there's an interest, a willingness to be a part of that process. Tom is expressing an interest, and I'd be happy to have Tom with us. Any other interest that we should discuss? Then I think that that committee will be made up of myself, with Jerry taking the lead and Tom joining us as well. Right? Excellent. And that, I think, concludes the committee part of this agenda, unless there are other questions or comments.
Need a motion for
We need a motion.
Oh, there's a motion to approve these as the committee list, so,
So moved.
Does anybody want me to reread the list that we
No.
just went down?
I'll second Mr. Olson.
Hearing not that, I've heard a motion and a second to
second.
approve the committees as we have just discussed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Next on the agenda, item 1.4, school board schedule of meetings. You have a schedule in front of you. This needs board approval. Is there any discussion on this agenda in front of us?
One question, I've asked this before, in July, you know, we don't have a work session because it's kind of a, I don't know, kind of a dead month or something, but do we need one? Should we have one or not? That's a question to throw out. And during the summer, should we be organizing for the new year or what? I don't know. It's right after budget. We prefer the budget June 30th, but I don't know. I'll just throw that out there.
Okay.
Could be vacation month, so maybe that's it.
Right,
So.
right. Other feelings on that, whether or not we want to commit at this time to a work session during July?
I'm certainly not opposed to it if there's a reason to meet. Seems like we usually always have something to talk about.
The first week in July is always right around that 4th of July, which, you know, is vacation time.
Yeah.
I know that I have an annual family reunion that time every year, and My mother would disown me if I didn't show up, so.
The alternative would be to move it to the 9th, Monday the 9th, instead of the 2nd.
Then just have back-to-back meetings, the 9th and the 16th.
I'll put my own 2 cents in here. Personally, I would prefer if we're feeling like we need the additional meeting, as I think Richard is certainly right that there are times that we need things to discuss. I would rather schedule a board retreat for August than to add a work session during July to give us a scheduled break. So that those are my 2 cents.
No problem.
If it were up to me, that's how I would do it, but this is a board decision, so I'm not sure what the sense of the board is.
There's probably some rationale for leaving it, for not doing it, and if we see a need, can we still call it?
Absolutely, yep, we could during the month of June schedule a meeting for July.
Maybe that's a better approach, is let's see what it looks like when we get to June, and if we need to, we'll call it.
Absolutely. Tom, thoughts on that?
I think Howard's idea makes a lot of sense to me. I have just this past summer to go by, and we seem to function okay at that point, but, you know, I could see possibility of needing some discussion, particularly, you know, at budget fiscal year time, but that's something we could call at the time, so that would make sense to me.
Deb, strong feelings to share?
No.
James, any strong thoughts on that? I'm not sure what the thumbs up means.
I like the proposal of meeting as necessary.
Yeah, deciding at a later date if we need it.
Right.
Richard,
Yeah,
any
that's
strong
fine, yeah.
objections to that?
Yeah, that's fine,
Okay,
that's
so we'll leave the schedule as is, and should we feel the need arising later on, we'll schedule a meeting as needed. All right, other discussion? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the board meetings.
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item 1.5, school board salaries. There was a small revision to this memorandum to reflect some changes that were made last year. Just so you can see what it was currently. So I would be happy to entertain any discussion at this point about thoughts on what board salary should be for the next year.
I'll introduce a motion to keep the salaries as they are for the 2011 and carry that over without any increases.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second to keep the salaries as they are. Any discussion on that? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving right along to agenda item 1.6, school assignments. We have a list of schools. We have a number of times discussed very briefly at the board some confusion about what these assignments really obligate us or the school to, and to this point it's essentially been left up to individual board members to decide that on their own. We have not had a formal discussion, although we've talked about doing so a number of times. So perhaps this January, this is January, perhaps in February would be a good time to have a short discussion on what we might want from each other. Does that, or any thoughts on this issue of the role of the school board member with these liaison assignments?
I thought Todd was going to talk to the principals, see how they felt.
It'd be very beneficial to have their input and discussion on that as well, so.
You know, we had Howard, you went and visited the high school with, was it with Lyle, that you took a tour around there? So, yeah, let me go back to the principals in the February meeting, I'll put in my 2 cents worth to let you know.
So we'll have a little more clarification on what we might expect of each other and what the schools might expect of us there. But at this time, then we'll choose what schools. I'm gonna entertain a little chair prerogative. I've been asked to serve the Area Learning Center. I don't know who served on that last year. Would you have any?
That's also in your packet.
Any objections to my filling that spot for next year?
I'd like to defer these assignments till we figure out what the expectations are. And this hasn't, my understanding is this hasn't always been the case. I mean, if the principals don't have expectations, I mean, maybe this doesn't serve a purpose anymore and we don't even need it. Maybe we organize, you know, annual visits or something and go out in a pair or something to visit. So I think there might be a better way, so I'd like to defer making the assignments at this time.
Any other thoughts on that idea of deferring?
I was going to suggest that also until we know exactly what they want and everything, and it was when I first started on the board, I don't know if they really expected more, but everybody went out more often. Richard,
We started
went
it, I think in like 2005. We assigned schools and go visit them and then report back to the board. But then it sort of faded over time.
Did you have the secretaries of each of those buildings kind of give you an agenda or an itinerary?
No, it wasn't that formal, no.
Okay.
No.
We've done that, I've done that. in the
You
past.
call the principal, you just will walk through, you're not micromanaging, you're
Yep.
just sort of walking through.
And then have-
You're not promising anything, you just,
Got a tour, talked to them, saw if they had any, you know,
Was that initiated by the board members, or was that initiated by the principals?
board
By
members.
board
So the board members
Board.
called and set
It
up
was
the
board
appointments and
members.
things like that, so, okay, or whatever. Okay.
Other thoughts on deferring this decision?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I like the idea of deferring it to
Okay.
see where and how we might fit in best.
Yeah.
And until that gets more clearly defined, I don't know how we make that decision.
and
Okay.
this is nothing that's, not every school district does this, do they, or?
No.
So, so like James said, it might be the fact that the principals don't really, it's something that we wouldn't have to necessarily do. They all have our numbers and everything anyway, so if they wanted to get a hold of us, they could.
I like the idea that board members show interest in what's going on in the schools and just kind of make sure it happens. You know, I wouldn't want to let it go said that we didn't have any idea what to do when we go there. But I do think there's a danger of meddling in staff responsibilities. And so we have to be aware that we aren't overstepping our bounds as board members when we go.
I do know that, all the principals would be open to having any one of you call them and just ask to come in and read, or to visit a classroom, or whatever it ends up being, but we can talk about that if we need to.
Just another option, I know we've already approved the calendar with locations, but there might be some value in rotating our work sessions to the individual buildings, at which time we would then have a presentation made by that staff about what's going on in that particular building, which would give us all board members an opportunity to interact with that staff, and it's gotta be more than just the principals. We'd like to see some staff up there talking about what they're doing in their classrooms and some of the dynamics that they're facing. So I know we already have the locations identified in the calendars, but just a proposal we could bring up in February is maybe we wanna rotate every other month or something, to have our work session in one of the building sites, where we would have a 15-20 minute presentation about what's going on in that building. And then something that's happening in the future in that building that we may be interested in hearing. So,
You've talked about that last year doing that also, didn't you? And as long as we just have to notify the public 3 days ahead of schedule where our meetings are, correct?
Right.
So,
One,
that
we
would
could
be
probably
very
do it well in
easily done.
advance of that.
Allison's
too,
got
if
my
we-
phone number too, so she can't.
If we're not there, she'll call. Yeah, and I think we can do it well in advance of that.
Yes.
There's no reason that it can't be decided early on in the year and kept firm, so. You know, I would just say quickly, before we table this item, I would hate to see us lose this. Personally, I've had some very positive relationships develop with this that I think, I hope didn't go into the realm of meddling, but sort of helped me really understand some of our buildings around the district. So I would like to see this continue in a more defined way, so that we, everyone sort of understands what the role is and no one's making guesses about that. So that's my feeling on it, but I'm certainly happy to go along with the feelings of the board to table this item. So we will table agenda item 1.6 to a later meeting, unless there's any further discussion. Right. Seeing none, we will move along. Agenda item 1.7, considering the approval of the Faribault Daily News as the official publication source for Faribault Public Schools. This is an item we need to do every year, is to designate an official publication source for the school district. And I think it's probably always been the Faribault Daily News. And so I'll entertain a motion. A second. Do I hear a second? All right, so I have a motion and a second to approve the Faribault Daily News.
Just a couple of comments, and this is directed to you, Allison, that, you know, for a while we had a rotating door about reporters coming in, and I, for one, appreciate the way you've reported the school news, and have been very honest and straightforward in your reporting. And I know that if an issue comes up, you're not hesitant to call Jason. She'll want your cell phone number.
She has it.
She has it. But I certainly, as a former chair, appreciate what you've done, Allison, for informing the public about what's going on in our school system. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. And you could also put that in the article if you wish.
We now know the focus of the story.
Reporter gets accolades. But seriously, you've done it just great. I appreciate what you've done.
And I would echo that too. It's been a great communication with Allison and I through a lot of the reports and clarifications, so I appreciate that.
There aren't a lot of communities that have that positive relationship with the press, and that's comforting to have.
All right. Any other
I was
comments
just getting
or
ready to
accolades?
nominate the shopper as.
No, you can't do so.
See, it's
So
the
motion's
same
already
moment.
been made. We need to vote it down if we want to do that. Other discussion or accolades to share? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, so next item on the agenda is to consider the approval of the local education agency representative as the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Todd, any words on what this means?
Local education agent is normally the person who signs off on many of the state documents and grants that we end up happening, and it'll oftentimes say at what board meeting was the local education agent assigned. And normally we have done either the curriculum director or the superintendent. And since this school district has normally done the curriculum director, I would just suggest having the curriculum director as your LEA and leaving it at that.
All right, any questions or further discussion on this this item? All right, hearing none. Did we entertain a motion yet? I don't think so. I'll entertain a motion
So
to
moved.
approve this
Second.
As curriculum director?
as curriculum director.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, and that seems to conclude all the items on my agenda. So I would entertain a motion at this time to adjourn the public meeting, and then we will move into a work session.
So move.
Second.
Hang on one
Discussion,
second.
I don't think it's fair. The first board meeting, we have a 40-minute board meeting, so you set the standards.
You're ruled out of order, Jerry. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.
Filibuster?